Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Pamela, and you are watching Pam Entertainment TV, where we review movies, television series, and incidents in pop culture to see how those incidents may or may not affect our daily lives. Listen, this is some stuff, y'all. This is some stuff. You see the headline. It says here Jay-Z sues former accuser, claiming she's now admitted that her story was false. Do you hear me? Now admitted that her story. Let's get into this article from Billboard. Housekeeping. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Listen, here we have it. It's written by Bill Donahue. And I'm wondering, let's see. Let's see if we could do this one. See if we can make it a little bit bigger. There. Try to make this as big as possible. There. All right, let's do it right here. Jay-Z sues former accuser, claiming she now admitted that her story was false. So, weeks after Jane Doe dropped her stunning allegations, and if you're not familiar with these allegations, let me go back over with you again. Now, this accuser, this Jane Doe, I call this the VMA 2000s situation. She claims that she was assaulted by Jay-Z and Sean Combs after the 2000 VMAs. Subsequently, those charges were found to be false and the lawsuit was dropped. Now, it's my understanding that Jay-Z is suing or having some incidents with Tony Busby. I'm going to look that up to see what it is, but I just want to go over this article first. But this is that case. And they used Jay-Z's name and Diddy's name because Diddy has plenty of lawsuits out against him, and he's also he has a Fed case out against him. So Tony Busby, who is a lawyer coming out of Texas, decided that he had a 1-800 number set up so that he could get as many clients as he could to then sue Diddy before the gender bias act or whatever that they could sue under before it sunset. So he had about 100 and he claimed he had about 120 something folks that were ready to sue, and he has subsequently filed several different lawsuits and things like that. So this particular lawsuit that he filed, number one, he did not vet the client. He did not vet to see if her story rang true. And shout out to internet sleuths and social media sleuths, because they got out here and they found that the story that she was telling, when they looked at all the situations that were going on, it didn't make any sense. Subsequently, Alex Spiro, who is the attorney for Jay-Z, did a press conference, and he basically outlined everything, saying that looking at what she said and coupled with the facts and where Diddy stayed at the time, it didn't make any sense because of the fact that she said that she was in a house. We found out that Diddy and Jay-Z were partying after the 2000 VMAs, but they were partying in separate places, and these places were business. Diddy didn't hold the party. He did not have his own party at that time. We also find out that she talked to a couple of celebrities at this party. She said we found out that that was not truthful, because the celebrities that she said she talked to, one of them wasn't at that party. He didn't go to that party, and the other celebrities, they were on tour. So we find out that information was false. We also found out that Tony Busby, in his haste to get these charges filed, he did not file for clearance to be able to practice law under the Southern District of New York in that court. He did not file the appropriate paperwork to be able to file in that court. So subsequently, he was denied to be the lawyer on that case, uh, because you remember the accuser and Tony Busby had to get a lawyer, and they were getting the lawyer at the same law firm up in New York. So it was apparent after those people probably vetted her. Now Tony Busby comes back and he says, well, her case was referred to me by a different law firm, and I just assumed that they had vetted. No, Playboy. You were supposed to, all this stuff that she had told you, you were supposed to be able to at least corroborate one piece. You didn't even corroborate. You didn't have any investigators come up to New York to do anything. You didn't do any of that. You didn't do your due diligence as a lawyer. You were so quick to get these lawsuits put up that you didn't do your due diligence. So now let's get back here. So weeks after Jane Doe dropped her stunning allegations, Jay-Z is suing her and her lawyers for malicious prosecution and abuse of process. Let's read what's going on. He's filing a lawsuits against the unnamed person because I'm quite sure she don't have any. She was looking for funds, so I'm quite sure she don't have any funds to now have to be subjected to a lawsuit. I don't think she has any funds to be subjected to a lawsuit, but he's suing her and he's suing Tony Busby and any and all of her lawyers that accused him of assaulting her last year, claiming she now has directly admitted that she fabricated those explosive allegations. The new case, filed weeks after the lawsuit against Jay-Z, Sean Carter, was abruptly dropped last month, alleges that the Jane Doe accuser and her attorney, Tony Busby, carried out a, quote, evil conspiracy to extort a settlement from the superstar by making false and malicious allegations against him. Notably, the new lawsuit says that Doe accuser has now voluntarily admitted directly to Jay-Z's team that the star did not assault her and that Busby pushed her to make those allegations. They're going to call her I think that they're going to call her as a witness. They're not going to try to you can't get blood from a turnip. They're going to call her as a witness against Busby. Sean Carter is now got his foot now on Tony Busby's neck. Mr. Carter does not commence this action lightly. His lawyers write in a complaint filed Monday, March the 3rd in Alabama federal court. I have to look that up, child. But the extortion and abuse of Mr. Carter by Doe and her lawyer must stop. This is something. And according to, we're not going to continue the article, but we know pretty much the gist of it. So you've got this man that's sitting up here now, who's literally having to fight. Let that upload. Let me look and to see. Give me one moment, y'all. I'm going to go see if I can find this lawsuit. Hold on, y'all. I just need to get to. We're going to find this case, honey, because we're going to definitely see what he has to say. But I just think it's awful that that they're out here. Please choose a court. Where would you like to go? let's do that one. Okay, we can't find it right now. They're doing some kind of stuff up here, and we're not gonna. I'm not gonna have y'all up here this long. But anyway, he has filed, and he is about to be on Tony Busby's tail. Do you hear me? He is about to be on Tony Busby's tail because this is something serious. Let's see if they may possibly. Because remember last month Jay-Z was talking about he felt like they were blackmailing him, because remember they had contacted Jay-Z before they filed the charges, basically saying, hey, we can settle this stuff now, before I put your name, amend the lawsuit that he had against Diddy, and I'm gonna put your name on it. And so that didn't work out, so he put Jay-Z's name on it. So I'm definitely going to find that lawsuit and see if we probably go back over to see what it says. What are y'all thinking about this? I think that this is just awful. I really do think it's awful. I'm just looking because sometimes some of these articles will have a link that you can watch or look at it. So I guess they don't have the two articles that I'm looking at. They don't have a link. Yeah, I keep forgetting about my friends over here. I'm gonna go to Twitter, because sometimes Document Teams will have it. Ha. Here we go. I got it, y'all. Let me share my screen. Oh, it's 114 pages. Filed in the Southern District. So she lives somewhere down South Alabama. Interesting. Let me do this. Let me present my screen. Shout out to Document Teams, because they always seem to have it. All right, let me change the way this looks. Let me go here. Here we go. Just Anthony Busby, David Fortney, Anthony G. Busby, LP, doing business as the Busby Law Firm, and Jane Doe, because Jane Doe lives in Alabama. And these are the attorneys for Sean Carter. It says introduction: A, false, malicious, strategically and tactically calculated and timed to inflict maximum pain and suffering on Mr. Carter. And D, in conspiracy with multiple attorneys. Multiple attorneys. So they're not playing with this. They're basically saying, look, you were out here. I'm just changing the all right. All right. In conspiracy with multiple attorneys, including defendants Anthony Busby and David Fortney, who, like her, was soullessly motivated by greed in abject disregard of the truth and the most fundamental precepts of human decency. My gosh. These are the only truthful and fair descriptions of Jane Doe and her lawyers' malevolent malevolent efforts to assassinate the impeccable and lifetime earned character of Sean Corey Carter, who is professionally known as Jay-Z, but more importantly is known as dad, husband, and son, and a human being who did nothing to deserve or elicit the wanton, depraved attack that Jane Doe, in conspiracy with her lawyers, launched to extort Mr. Carter beginning on November 5th, 2024, through a menacing private demand letter. Doe and her lawyers, Anthony Busby, David Fortney, and Anthony G. Busby, doing business as a Busby Law Firm, then brought before the world an in-court complaint, the impossibility and indeed absurdity of which was surpassed only by its vile malevolence, in a desperate attempt to leverage Mr. Carter into an extortionate payoff, which these malicious actors presented as the only path for Mr. Carter to prevent the public prosecution of a lawsuit by Jane Doe. When their initial extortionate demand letter failed to yield the financial windfall they sought, and after Doe told Busby, with whom she had never spoken before the demand letter was drafted and sent, that Mr. Carter did not assault her, Busby pushed her towards going forward with the false story against Mr. Carter to make the case better and get them, the lawyers and her, more money. Specifically, Busby brought Jay-Z into it. Y'all. And we see this because he didn't vet her. He didn't vet her. And then he places her in front of NBC News. And NBC News talked to this woman for what? Probably a couple of hours, and talked to her sources, her different sources, and was able to get to crack the case or get more information out that what she says didn't make any sense. Particularly, the way when I initially heard this case, I thought, oh, okay, she lived in the New York City area. She got her friend dropped her off. She was trying to figure her way in, because that's the first thing. But then when you start understanding that this young lady lived in Rochester, New York, which was 5.5 hours away. So you had some friend drive you 5.5 hours for you to get to the VMAs. And let's be clear, I think the VMAs started at 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that meant if you had to go 5.5 hours, your person had to start driving you earlier in that day for you to get there. Just a mess. But let's continue. Busby then went forward with naming Mr. Carter with full knowledge by him, as imparted to him by Doe, that Mr. Carter had never assaulted Doe, and Doe's entire story as it related to Mr. Carter was completely fabricated. Now, I do like how they put that there. They said is related to Mr. Carter, because again, you remember in this lawsuit, she said that it was Sean Carter and Sean Combs, but they're saying related to Mr. Carter. They don't know what happened over there with the with Sean Combs. And like I said, they're not trying to say that whatever happened, but they know that Jay-Z wasn't part of it. Doe has now voluntarily admitted directly to representatives of Mr. Carter that the story brought before the world in court and opened on global television was false. Malicious story was a false, malicious story. She admitted that Mr. Carter did not assault her, and that indeed it was Busby himself whom she met for the first time at a coffee shop in Houston on the day of her maliciously false NBC News interview. You mean to tell me you trotted this woman in front of the thing and you hadn't met her? You had not done your due diligence as an attorney, Busby. Now you ought to be shamed. You really ought to be shamed. You really ought to be shamed. Let's see. On the day of her maliciously filed false NBC interview, which discussed in detail below, who pushed her to go forward with the false narrative of assault by Mr. Carter in order to leverage a maximum payday. To compound this egregious harm, just last Friday, Busby and Fortney's co-counsel, a prominent New York attorney in the now dismissed false action against Mr. Carter, threatened Mr. Carter's counsel to double down with yet another false public statement by Doe if Mr. Carter publicly revealed her admissions and Busby's and Fortney's misdeeds in Mr. Carter's pending California lawsuit against Mr. Busby. This is not right. Fortunately and clearly unexpectedly from their perspective, Doe, Busby, and Fortney were met with nothing but righteous resolve at every turn by Mr. Carter. He stood steadfast, publicly decried the lies being put forth against him, and beat the evil conspiracy among malicious Doe and her malevolent, soulless lawyers, driving them back into the shadows from which hey, I don't know who wrote this, but this it is not funny, but it sounds like a movie plot. Doesn't it sound like a movie plot? Or the reasons why there is a movie plot. Doe and her malevolent, soulless lawyers driving them back into the shadows from which they came, resulting in the voluntary dismissal with prejudice, without settlement, of their false and malicious complaint on February 14, 2025. Mr. Carter does not commit this action lightly. Following Jane Doe's admission that she fabricated her claims against Mr. Carter, her lawyers have continued to seek to hide this reality, including through further extortionate threats and demands by Mr. Busby, Fortney, and their New York co-counsel on February 28th. Even after all of this, Mr. Carter does not expose his malicious and wrongful accuser's identity in this complaint, seeking to maintain her anonymity as Doe. But the extortion and abuse of Mr. Carter by Doe and her lawyers must stop. Therefore, Mr. Carter brings this lawsuit to hold Doe accountable for her willful defamation per se and her malicious prosecution of knowingly false allegations against Mr. Carter that Doe and her co-conspirator attorneys have falsely and maliciously peddled. And it goes on who the parties are, and it just goes on who they are, and we know who they are. Let's continue. They talk about the jurisdiction. He's a citizen of California. And Jane Doe is a citizen of the state of Alabama. Let's see. So these are the allegations common to all claim. After hiring the Busby law firm, Doe falsely accused Mr. Carter of her assault in a written correspondence, court filing, and on global television. Doe appears to be suffering from personal and financial hardship. She lost custody of her children, and her parents, who on information and belief support Doe, recently filed for bankruptcy protection. Desperate to obtain a payday, Doe hired the Busby law firm, which has a long history of whipping up a media frenzy with vague and sensational claims against public figures to extort payment from Mr. Carter under the threat of devastating harm to his reputation. As discussed below, Doe first attempted to extort Mr. Carter through an extortionate demand letter and an anonymous lawsuit, both from Busby. When Mr. Carter refused to capitulate to Doe's baseless demands, Doe doubled down by using the justice system to attempt to ruin Mr. Carter by formally naming Mr. Carter in a complaint, making horrific false allegations. And when those also failed, Doe resorted to defaming Mr. Carter on global television. A simple Google or other public record search of Doe by Busby's and Fortney would have cast doubt on her credibility by revealing that, among other things, less than 90 days before sending the demand letter, she had been court on mental health related issues in connection with her second-degree assault charges. Who she assaulted? What's going on? And had her bail revoked for failing a drug test. She has several mental health disorders and takes multiple medications, according to testimony from her psychiatrist laid bare in public court records. And she made 3 other assault allegations, which were either dropped or dismissed by courts. So this is not her first go round. So she was throwing crap at the wall to see where it was going to stick. It says Doe sues Sean Combs entity and Doe's 1 through 10, alleging that she was assaulted at an after party following the 2000 MTV Video Music Awards. On October 20th, 2024, Doe sued Sean Diddy Combs and his business entities, as well as Doe's 1 through 10. And that's Exhibit 1, and that's the original complaint. But we've already gone over that original complaint. Although Doe's lawsuit also implicated unnamed celebrity A and celebrity B, Doe did not formally name them as parties. Instead, Doe only sued Doe's 1 through 10 as defendants. In her original complaint, Doe alleges that when she was 13 years old, a friend dropped her off at Radio City Music Hall in New York City so she can try to attend the VMAs on September 7th, 2000. Although she was unable to talk her way into the VMAs, a limousine driver purporting to work for Combs invited her to an after party. Later that evening, the limousine driver took her to a large white house with a gated U-shaped driveway about 20 minutes away. And again, shout out to the internet sleuths because they were looking for this place and couldn't find it. There was no place, no mansion, no large white house 20 minutes north, south, east, or west from Radio City Music Hall. After accepting a drink, Doe claimed that she felt woozy and lightheaded and found herself to be believed in an empty bedroom. And then that's where she said that all of this happened. So, and if you want to go back, go check out my video reading that lawsuit in regards to her. Doe sends Mr. Carter an extortionate letter falsely accusing him of assault. A few weeks after filing her complaint, Doe, through Busby, sent Mr. Carter an extortionate letter dated November 5th, 2024. So remember, she filed the lawsuit on October 20, and you remember when Busby did his big press conference, he was talking about all the many people that he had on the list that were supposed to be involved in all of this. So you keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So then he sends, I'm assuming that these quote unquote people that he had out there that he knew that he was going to send complaints to, I believe he thought that he was going to send each one of them letters and to see which one was going to pay him. What I'm interested to see, my lip is chapped, sorry y'all. What I'm interested, because he said that quote unquote celebrity B, they weren't going to mention. So I'm wondering, did celebrity B pay him? Who was celebrity? Who did they claim to be celebrity B? And did celebrity B pay him or no? Let's continue. Some of the allegations in Doe's letter were from the public complaint Doe filed against Combs, and Doe's 1 through 10, which contained inconsistencies that were later changed when the complaint was amended. Because remember, she amended when they started talking about the timelines and the time this happened and the time that happened. Again, the social media sleuth was like, wait a minute. If he took the people didn't leave the VMAs to this time. So that means that he had to take her to the party first. What she's saying don't make any sense. But let's continue. Which contained inconsistencies with later change when the complaint was amended, with the obvious implications being that she would amend her complaint to add Mr. Carter if he refused to pay. Doe threatened to take a different course if Mr. Carter did not commit a confidential mediation to resolve this delicate and important matter by the deadline of November 19th. So they gave Sean Carter to the 19th to come up with the money, honey, or get up out of here. So to avoid public and criminal exposure, Busby stated that his client wants something of substance by way of a settlement. Doe had already sued Mr. Carter, albeit as one of the Does. plan was thus clear. She was demanding that Mr. Carter either pay something of substance to stop her from making public the wildly false allegation of assault that would subject Mr. Carter to opprobrium and irreparable harm to his reputation, family, career, and livelihood, or two, endure the financial and personal ruin. Jay-Z said, nope, I'm not paying nothing. And we see what happened to that. I'm not going to read all of this. Let me see. This is page 8 of 25. Why does this? Oh, because those are amendments. So we'll continue. It's 25 pages. We can continue on. Doe amends her lawsuit to falsely allege that Mr. Carter assaulted her. Unwilling to capitulate to Doe and Busby's extortion on November 18th, Mr. Carter filed a lawsuit against Mr. Busby for extortion and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Mr. Carter explained that Busby was, quote, shamelessly attempting to extort exorbitant sums from him, or else publicly filed wildly horrific allegations from him. On December 8th, 2024, humiliated by Mr. Carter's lawsuit, Busby encouraged Doe to file, and Busby and Fortney filed a first amended complaint revealing what Mr. Carter knew all along, that one of the Does was a placeholder for Mr. Carter if he did not pay her ransom. Exhibit 2. In Doe's first amended complaint, Doe makes wild, horrific, but utterly false allegations against Mr. Carter, substituting him for celebrity A from the earlier complaint. Doe goes on global television falsely accusing Mr. Carter of assault. On December 13th, and this is key, on December 13, 2024, NBC News broadcast portions of an exclusive interview of Doe, which was conducted with Fortney by her side. My. NBC News honored Doe's request to mask her identity. NBC News published a story excerpting interviews as it held with Doe. See Chloe Mellis. Okay. So that's the news that, excuse me. That's the news report and the video. During the interview, which was set up by Busby, was given on a voluntary basis and in the presence of Fortney, Doe lied about Mr. Carter to a global television audience. In addition to attempting to explain the impossible, how she, as a 13-year-old from upstate New York, wound up in Manhattan in a private VMA after party with countless celebrities, Doe told NBC News how she spoke with musicians, right here, I'm not going to call his name, and his brother at the after party. She recalled talking to Benji I'm going to call his name, about his tattoo of the Last Supper because she has a religious background, so it was something to talk about. Doe repeated her claims that while at the after party, she had a drink that made her feel a little woozy, after which Combs and Mr. Carter took turns assaulting her, and that there's some unidentified female celebrity watched. So all of Doe's allegations against Mr. Carter were demonstrably false. He says that first, Doe stated that the assault occurred at a residence. It was shown that Mr. Carter was at no such residence. Indeed, NBC News located photos of Mr. Carter from that evening, showing him at a party at a commercial building, the now closed Lotus Club in New York City. Of course, a private nightclub cannot be mistaken for a, quote, large white residence with a gated U-shaped driveway that included a large living room or foyer, a hallway containing several rooms off of it, and a bedroom. Even Busby admitted to NBC News that Doe does not claim the assault occurred at the Lotus nightclub. Second, Doe told NBC News that she spent 20 minutes in the limo before arriving at the residence. However, when pressed about these details in follow-up interviews with NBC, Doe admitted she did not know where she was going or even how long the drive took. Worse, she conceded to NBC that she guessed about the length of time of the trip taken in the lawsuit. Third, as to her description of a supposed conversation with Benji Madden during her interview with NBC News, a representative from Madden confirmed to NBC News that neither he nor his brother attended the 2000 VMAs, and that they and their band, Good Charlotte, were on tour in the Midwest at the time. When confronted with this evidence, she conceded that she made mistakes in identifying them, and that's not all the faces at the party were clear. See, this is stuff that Busby was supposed to have done. Fourth, regarding her pre-dawn drive home with her father, Doe's father told NBC News that he does not recall picking Doe up, which unsurprisingly would have been something that he would definitely stick in his mind. He said that he learned of the alleged assault when Doe was interviewed by NBC News in December, and he did not remember picking Doe up in the middle of the night. But it was a local drive based on their address in Rochester, New York. The father would have had driven at least 5 hours and 47 minutes to pick her up. NBC should have led with that. They should have led with that one. And there are countless other falsehoods in Joe's allegations. For instance, despite alleging that it took 20 minutes to get from Radio City Music Hall to the after party, there are no houses, here we go, matching Doe's description within 20 minutes of Radio City Music Hall. And although she implies that Combs hosted the after party, none of Combs' properties match Doe's description of the location of the after party. Because I think when you looked at Alex Spiro's press briefing, he mentioned that at that time, Sean Combs lived, and I'm trying to think, I think he didn't own a house at that time. He owned a house later on, like a couple of years later, he owned a house, and I think that was in New Jersey. But he said during that time, during the 2000 VMAs, he lived in a high-rise apartment. Moreover, Doe alleges that after the VMAs began, much of the crowd moved inside, but Doe, without a ticket, remained outside with others and watched the VMA on the Jumbotron. But the broadcasts of the VMA conclusively show that there was no Jumbotron. Indeed, the producers of the 2000 VMAs and the NYPD confirmed that there was no Jumbotron since their permit application was denied. Even if Doe was outside the VMAs as she claimed, she could not have approached celebrity limousines because they were only outside of the Radio City Music Hall briefly for celebrities pick up and drop off. In any event, the celebrity limousines were separated from fans by police barricades, as publicly available video of the event clearly shows. NBC confronted Doe regarding this substantial contradictory evidence, which it had uncovered in less than a week after conducting the initial interview in a follow-up phone interview. In response, Doe admitted that she made some mistakes. She also disavowed the allegations in her complaint about the location of the alleged incident and admitted that she was just guessing. But Doe did not drop her baseline complaint. She instead insisted on moving forward, including by offering to submit to a polygraph, which never occurred in any event, has never seen the light, and if it had, it never saw the light of day. Doe waited months before dismissing her false complaint and did so after being lied to by her attorneys for their own benefit. Mr. Carter made several court filings repeatedly detailing the falsity of Doe's claims as revealed by her story's inconsistency, and the baseline of various allegations. At each of these junctures, Doe was confronted with the false nature of her claims, as well as the harm it was causing Mr. Carter. At any of these points, Doe could have withdrawn her lawsuit. Nevertheless, Doe continued to pursue her claims without regard to the harm that it was causing or could cause Mr. Carter. She has now admitted that Mr. Carter did not assault her. Indeed, Busby was aware that Mr. Carter did not assault her and pushed her to make the false claims for money. Having already sent the false defamatory demand letters, having filed the false and defamatory complaint, and having already set up Doe to give the false and defamatory interview to NBC News, Busby, Fortney, and the Busby law firm were happy to perpetrate the lies and hold out hope for an unwarranted payment for them and Doe. Indeed, Busby went so far as to tell TMZ on December 10th, already full aware of the falsities of the allegation, having met with Doe in Houston, that Doe was not ruling out filing our charges against Mr. Carter, and that what happens next is up to his client. It's her case, and what she decides to do, you will find out in due course. And so they have a copy of the TMZ article. Busby had signed the complaints in the actions against Mr. Carter without being admitted to the bar of the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York as required. When the judge presiding over the case was advised of this fact, she issued an order dated January 28th requiring Busby to file proof of admission on the docket. The very next day, Busby filed for such admission. On February 13, one day before his deadline to file proof of admission in the SDNY, Busby got the news that because he had already filed pleadings in the SDNY without being admitted to the bar of that court, in the case at issue here and in more than 20 others, his application for admission had been denied. He was also instructed to attach a copy of the denial letter to any subsequent application for admission in a particular case in that district. Faced with his inability to comply with the judge's order in the case against Mr. Carter and facing the threat of punishment by the court, Busby dispatched Fortney to Alabama to meet with Doe that same day, namely February 13, 2025. During that meeting, Fortney falsely, maliciously, and manipulatively told Doe that the case against Mr. Carter needed to be dismissed as Mr. Carter had made threats against Doe's life. And it was too dangerous to continue with the case. Of course, no such threats had ever been made. Say what? This is not the Power universe. They operating like this is the Power universe. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna read 55 again because they faced with his inability to comply with the judge's order in the case against Mr. Carter and facing the threat of punishment by the court, Busby dispatched Fortney to Alabama to meet with Doe that same day, namely February 13, 2025. During that meeting, During that meeting, Fortney falsely, maliciously, and manipulatively told Doe that the case against Mr. Carter needed to be dismissed as Mr. Carter made threats against Doe's life, and it was too dangerous to continue with the case. Of course, no such threats had ever been made. Y'all. During that meeting, Fortney falsely... Let me see if this will help. Hold on, y'all. Hold on just one moment. Where were we? During that meeting, what is going on? During that meeting, Fortney falsely... Okay, we did that. Rather, Busby and Fortney were desperate to withdraw the false case or face punishment in court for their action in filing a false pleading without Busby even being admitted in the SDNY, jeopardizing their ability to continue with more than 20 other cases they had pending. Thus, in the evening of Friday, February 14th, Doe quietly filed her voluntary dismissal with prejudice, Exhibit 8. But the threats and extortion did not end with the dismissal of Doe's fraudulent suit. Rather, on February 28th, 2025, after Doe admitted all of the foregoing and After Busby's became aware of those missions, a prominent New York attorney serving as Busby and Fortney's co-counsel called an attorney for Mr. Carter. During the call, Busby and Fortney's New York co-counsel threatened that if Mr. Carter's attorney filed anything in Mr. Carter's pending extortion and defamation case in California against Busby related to the statements made by Doe, fully exculpating Mr. Carter in an inculpating her and Busby for extortion and conspiracy, that Busby would issue a public statement by Doe that she, one, was being harassed by Mr. Carter's people since she dropped the lawsuit, and two, dropped the lawsuit only because she was afraid for her life that the allegations of Mr. Carter against Mr. Carter in the drop lawsuit were all true. Of course, Doe's allegation. I'm just trying to pull all this in because all this was happening in the past couple of weeks. We're only in March, what, 2nd? We're going into March 3rd. We're in March 2nd. So all this happened last week. Of course, Doe's allegation about being harassed by Mr. Carter's quote unquote people since she dropped the lawsuit and about her reasons for dropping the lawsuit are and always were false. When Doe, Busby, and Fortney and their New York co-counsel said they knew or could readily have discovered through any reasonable inquiry that the statements were false. Thus, the threat of extortion and further defamation continues to this day, necessitating that Mr. Carter take action to prevent unscrupulous actors from further preying on him. So his first cause of action is malicious prosecution. We've gone over that malicious prosecution and all that he did. And we're not going to go back over all that stuff because we just kind of went over. His second cause of action is abuse of process against all defendants. So they're talking about on October 20th, 2024, that they filed the lawsuit. And then on November 5th, they sent Jay-Z and his counsel an extortionate letter. And then after he refused, they named him in the lawsuit. And they just go back over the same information, y'all. And his third cause, civil conspiracy against all defendants. So we're going to read that one. We're going to read most of it. All defendants agreed and worked together and knowingly and willfully conspired to maliciously prosecute and abuse the legal process against Mr. Carter. The defendants agreed to initiate and continue the false and malicious lawsuit in the shared objective of extorting Mr. Carter through false and damaging accusations, thereby causing harm to his reputation and financial well-being. In doing so, all the defendants intended to harm Mr. Carter. One or more of the defendants took an overt act. And again, those overt acts was filing the lawsuits, knowing that they were false, getting on national TV, talking about these allegations, knowing that they were false, and then continue to call him to figure out how they can get some money, or they were going to be able to say that that Jay-Z and them were trying to hurt her. Child, if this is not a plot for power, I promise you. Whoo, child. In doing so, all defendants intended to harm Mr. Carter. Okay, I read that. Let's go here. Defendant Busby, as Doe attorney, filed initial lawsuits. Defendant Fortney, as an attorney representing Zoe, assisted in pursuing the lawsuit and was complicit in the unlawful purpose of extorting Mr. Carter. Busby and Fortney continued to prosecute the meritless lawsuit even after each were confronted with further evidence of its falsity, demonstrating their collective intent to harm Mr. Carter. Defendant Doe actively participated in the formulation and the prosecution of false claims against Mr. Carter. The conduct of these defendants caused Mr. Carter's harm. Defendants collectively collective conduct, including their malicious prosecution and abuse of process, was intentionally and calculated to cause Mr. Carter injury. Their conspiracy was executed to extort money from Mr. Carter and to damage his personal, professional, and business reputation. And which he did, because he said that he lost about $20 million worth of contracts about this. And I think they were looking at, even though the NFL said that they were backing him 100%, there were little quiet rumblings allegedly that they were looking at possibly quietly replacing him. But that all probably went out of the window ever since this Kendrick Lamar's halftime show and how many viewers and eyes they had on them. Doe has made false and fourth cause of action, defamation against Doe. Doe has made false and defamatory statements to and through third parties, including but not limited to major media outlets and through her attorney Busby on social media platforms and during public interviews. Because he wrote on his IG and Twitter accounts about this stuff, and he also wrote about how he was a Marine and all this. You remember all that stuff? Busby has done all of that. These statements were widely disseminated to the general public through media outlets, social media platforms, and during public interviews. Notwithstanding the falsity of her allegation, Doe relied on NBC News and other sources to republish and further disseminate her defamatory statements about Mr. Carter to the public, despite knowing that providing such statements to media outlets would disseminate her false statements about Mr. Carter throughout the country and world to millions of readers, which is what they did on December 13, 2024. And they continue on with that. Let me see if they've got anything extra to add. So those are the four actions. They're praying for relief. They want an award of assumed and actual damages, punitive vandal, regional costs and legal fees, pre and post judgment, and any other relief that the judge deemed necessary. And they want a jury trial. And they dated this on March the 3rd. So they filed this today. And they used an Alabama attorney to do that. And I think as we get down, these are the exhibits. That's the cover sheet. It's not necessary. This is the summons of action, proof of service. These are just all the attachments that they need to file in the Southern District. And here's the exhibits. And this is the initial complaint. We've gone over this initial complaint, and then it should be the amended complaint is coming up next. Yeah, so here's where they added his name. So it was the amended complaint. Here are the NBC News, because you remember they had that 5-minute interview, and here is they have him attached. Here is an article about it. They went on and went over her statements. They had a full thing. These are the 3 NBC News reporters that wrote the report. Ooh. Okay, so these are the transcripts. Looks like these are the transcripts of the so these are the transcripts of her interview We're not gonna read it. I'm not gonna read him. Y'all, shout out to Document Teens is on X, and she has a copy of this. So if you all want to go look through that, you definitely could go to her Twitter page, her account, her X account, and get this information from there. The TMZ. And I think we went over this article. We definitely went over this article. And pretty much more of the same. Exhibit 6. So that's the order where he had to show proof. And they call it for him to be able to because I remember, shout out to Cat Not Williams. I remember her talking about this pro hoc vice, and that's the permission that they get to be able to prosecute in these different federal courts. Dismissing this is their thing of dismissing the case, and we went over that. Y'all, a mess, an absolute mess. So there is an extortion lawsuit in California. There's an extortion lawsuit in California. I thought I had one. Here it is. There's an extortion lawsuit in California. There is a defamation lawsuit in Alabama. And these other cases of Tony Busby, I don't know if they're going to hold water. I don't know if they're going to hold water, y'all. But we will definitely figure this out. What do y'all think about this? What do you all think about this? This is a mess, an absolute mess of Tony Busby thing. So this woman has already got issues and problems and issues. And now she's got Jay-Z. She's got an issue and problems and issues and problems and things with Jay-Z. That ain't what you want. That ain't what you want. That ain't what you want. And particularly once you've said that this lawsuit was false, that ain't what you want. It ain't what you want. Y'all, what do you think of this story? Y'all, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Baby. Jay-Z is not playing with you. He's going to keep his foot on your neck, Tony Busby, until you yield. And you come out in public and tell the folks that you was out here telling stories. That's just the way I see it. I don't know if you have any way to get around it. You might lose your job. You about to lose your job, your license, and any of those things, and all those other cases may go down the wayside. We're going to talk about again. I'm crafting a video in regards to Diddy, and we're going to go over that case. But what I'm looking at, y'all, is I don't what the Southern District of New York is his criminal charges. I don't know how this will impact that, but this may impact his lawsuits, and particularly when I'm talking about the lawsuits that Tony Busby has put forth. This may assist Diddy with those lawsuits, and those lawsuits may go away just simply by technicalities because Busby didn't file the right paperwork or file what he needed to do in order to file, in order to be able to litigate cases in the Southern District of New York. He didn't file the proper paperwork. So if he hasn't filed the proper paperwork for this one, I don't know if the judge will allow for him and his law firm to represent the other 19 cases that are there for I don't know if they're going to allow him to do that, for him to be the attorney on that. And if there is a taint with this case, I'm quite sure that any lawyer is not going to want to handle the other cases, because you remember I told you the Hampton incident where a male John Doe claimed that Diddy had assaulted him in the Hamptons. You know, that case was getting a little rough because he said the year that he said it happened, Diddy did not have a house party at the Hamptons that year. So it's some of these things, some of these stories, now they're going back and having to actually vet these people to see what they're saying is actually true, because there's no reason in the world why you didn't hire a private investigator to at least vet the stuff, get the information, see where there was. It was a simple internet search that could have shown you where Diddy was partying, because Diddy's personality, he likes everybody know what he's doing when he's doing it. I mean, when he's having these big parties and he's inviting all his celebrity guests, he enjoys that. But I don't know. All right, people. We do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, like I tell y'all, sometimes it's easier for me to go live than it is to sit down and try to do these recordings. All right, people. Please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you cannot stand that I'm over here making these videos. And y'all, hit that like button before you leave. But what do y'all think about this? How much weight do you have now for these other cases that Tony Busby has put forth to the court against Sean Diddy Combs? Y'all leave that down in the comment below. All right, people. Always, thank you so much for watching. And bye-bye. A mess. This is messy. This is messy, messy, messy.